I'm not there to make them, quote, feel good. This isn't, I don't do feel good counseling. I do making things clear counseling. So.
Welcome back to Mad in Love, the podcast where we dive deep into the complexities of relationships, healing, and growth. You may recognize me as your producer, Katie Buckley, but today I'm going to shake things up a bit and be your host. We're back with Dr. Hawkins' favorite segment, Dr. Hawkins Reacts, and we're joined by his esteemed colleague, Jonathan Glover, to tackle an important topic today. What does success look like at the Marriage Recovery Center? I've prepared a list of questions that Dr. Hawkins and Jonathan have not reviewed, so I'm excited. Dr. Hawkins, Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Great, Katie. Looking forward to this. As always, you bring great questions, and I'm always interested in hearing what Jonathan thinks because he challenges me. And Jonathan, welcome too.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I am curious as well.
Well, you're both in the hot seat because today we want to look at what success looks like. We want to look at how it's measured, how we show up in public platforms. So to start off, Dr. Hawkins, do you mind defining what success looks like in counseling, especially when dealing with NPD and emotional abuse?
Katie and Jonathan, I often think of one word actually, and the word is clarity. Clarity, making things clear. Whenever I do an evaluation, which I do a lot of, Jonathan does a lot of them as well. When we invite the man to share, the woman to share, then both of them to share together, what I say to them, you can expect this from me, and it is clarity. You can expect that I will highlight what I see going wrong in your relationship, as well as what's going right in your relationship. What takes you down, so to speak, what takes you up, so to speak. And then as you gain clarity, you're going to be able to make better choices for how you want to proceed and whether you want me to coach you in how you move forward. So I say to them, I'm likely to ask questions. I'm likely to confront you. I'm likely to say things that will make you uncomfortable or will create some discomfort in your relationship. But for sure, I'm going to shine a bright light on what I see happening in your relationship, as much as one can do that in 3 sessions. But people always, always, always say to me, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your promise that you will help to make things clear, clarity. And then from that clear place, you can make better choices. And people appreciate that. It always creates discomfort, but I'm not there to make them, quote, feel good. This isn't, I don't do feel good counseling. I do making things clear counseling. So that's how I would define success in terms of any couple, any individual, anybody that comes to me for counseling. They will become clearer about what's happening in their lives.
I also, when you're asking the question about what is success or how do we define success in the therapeutic setting, I try early on to sometimes I say create a common language for what the objectives are, what the goals are, how to measure those goals and those objectives, those steps, as far as the course of treatment or the treatment plan. I like to work early on with individuals or couples talking about how to what their goals are and how to measure that. And in individual counseling, it's usually fairly straightforward. And as Dr. Hawkins said, some of it does involve providing direct feedback. This is what I'm seeing. Here's my observations. Here's what I think would also be helpful. With a couple, though, that's where it becomes difficult, because the two individuals might measure success or define success differently. So one of the partners might say that their goal is to stop abuse, to stop abusive cycles and patterns within the relationship, and the other spouse might say, "I want to remain married. I want, above everything else, I want to make sure that the marriage survives." And that's how I'm measuring success, and that's how I'm measuring how well the therapist is doing, for example, or something like that. Now, I don't think that those two goals. I think that they can exist together. Those two goals can work together just fine. But there needs to be some clarity about what are the issues at hand, and the the abuse that might be occurring is going to be required to be addressed in order for the marriage to succeed. At least if that's what the first spouse is defining it as.
I want to highlight, you said clear, you used my word again, Jonathan, which is great, clarity about the issues involved, which I was thinking about this, Katie and Jonathan, that, my training way back many years ago, Rogerian training says we just sit and listen. We just, which is wonderful. We sit and listen. We hold space. And that's feel good counseling. And I think we do some of that, but when we highlight trouble that's happening in the relationship, abusive patterns, it isn't feel good counseling. It isn't just sitting and reflecting what a person is saying. It is, and this is uncomfortable for some folks, but what I find, the average person who calls a marriage recovery center, they don't want to just have, they've tried that. They've tried a pastor, a friend, a counselor who has sat and said, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I'm with you. I hear you saying this and I hear you saying that. I think they value, Jonathan, I'm curious, do you find, as I do, they even perhaps even the abusive partner, whoever that might be, they do value straight, honest feedback generally. I mean, it makes them uncomfortable, but I think people are looking for critical feedback. Is that your experience too, or?
Some of the time. I would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that sometimes uh, they don't want to hear, or they don't agree with the feedback. But I think at least in that case, they're able to then make a decision on whether or not they want to continue with the counseling process. When you're giving them direct feedback, they're able to say, well, I completely disagree with everything that's being said here. I completely disagree with the course that's being outlined here as far as the direction and the recommendations go. So I'm tapping out now. I'm not going to be continuing. So I think even if they do not agree, like 100% do not agree with anything that's being discussed or recommended, at least the clarity allows them to make that decision.
I would only add to this that bad behavior, we have a saying, bad behavior is bad behavior. I think Sharman, one of our colleagues, says that bad behavior is bad behavior. And typically, I mean, do we have some outliers? Do we have some who say, like, I don't like anything that you have said. I don't like any of the direction we're taking. The abusive partner, when confronted, we have some. I think it's a small percentage, though. Most, when I draw their attention to bad behavior, that's just bad behavior. I mean, you wouldn't like it if somebody talked to you that way. You don't tolerate it when others are that treat you in that disrespectful way. I typically find that most people will acknowledge bad behavior is bad behavior, and for the most part. Yeah, we have some that rail against any kind of critical feedback, but I think largely people can respect Yeah, there's some common understandings about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable in relationship. And so when we shine a bright light, that's uncomfortable for everybody, myself included, but there's some level of appreciation typically.
I get a lot of feedback on phone calls about just the surprise people have of quote unquote NPD men who are resistant towards change or admitting that there's anything wrong within themselves to commit to, like, say, the comprehensive core program. That just sounds so outrageous to them. What are the different challenges or the way that you communicate these different thinking errors and quote unquote bad behavior to your clients that helps them hear what you have to say before they shut down? That's something that not a lot of places could do. What does MRC do that's different?
Yeah, we're trying to say some difficult things to the men in our comprehensive core program. As you know, I'm currently writing a book. We are writing a book. Dr. Hudson and myself are writing a book, and the title is "So You've Been Called a Narcissist. Now What?" And the point of it, the first couple of chapters are kind of get over it, get over it. Come on, let's get on with the task at hand. And another huge issue. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. Men want shortcuts. And there aren't any shortcuts. They're long cuts. This is a long process. We have a 3-tiered treatment program. Jonathan does the dual core, and then we have the advanced core, then we have core strength. And many of the men need to go through dual core or core again, and advanced core twice, and then core strength. So I try to work at the beginning to get men to understand there's no shortcuts. There just isn't. There's no little primer. There's no like we had in college. You could read I forget what it was called, a cheat sheet. There's no cheat sheet. This is a long process to change character. So, Katie, you ask, what do we do? What do I do? I try to convey to them, look, I'm a man. I'm a man. I get it. I don't want to have to do the long, hard work either, but I'm doing it, and you can do it too. And you need to do it. Shortcuts won't work. They will fail, and you will be disappointed, and you'll end up coming back to us in 6 months or a year because it will fail. So let's not take any shortcuts. Let's do the long, hard work. Join the rest of the team here. Notice other men that are doing the long, hard work. And that seems to help most men, most that come to the Marriage Recovery Center. Again, are there some that say, not doing it, dropping out after one 14-week dual core program? And then we say, okay, see you later. See you in a year and a half when what you're doing isn't working. So, Jonathan, what do you do to help men settle in and do the long, hard work?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts on that, and it's kind of funny because you hit my first point directly. It's a lot of times, it's getting out of the she's calling me names, she's calling me a narcissist,
Right,
and
right.
it's I think as quickly as I can step into saying this concept of psychological abuse, it is measurable. There are specific behaviors that we can talk
I love
about
it.
and name and measure. Do you do these things? And a lot of the times, that's where the guy says, "Yeah, I do a handful of those things. In fact, I might do most of those things." And then they're able to say, "Oh, I am engaging in these harmful patterns." The other thing that I'll mention is that honestly, I'd say the majority of the guys that come in for the evaluations, have already listened to some of the podcasts. They've already watched some of the videos. Some of them have actually read the materials that we send before the marriage evaluations. And I would say, and this has been surprising to me since starting to work at the Marriage Recovery Center years ago. Most of the guys in the evaluations are they're there to hear the hard stuff, and they already are starting to take a look at and consider their behavior even before talking to me, which is fantastic. I
Yeah.
honestly, I have
Yeah.
a lot of respect for anybody in any counseling process who is stepping in knowing that they are going to be doing something that's uncomfortable and difficult.
So the buzz out there, narcissists are untreatable. If you're emotionally abusive, there's no hope. I mean, it's wild. So it's just not our experience. Our experience, it's challenging work. It's difficult work. There are outliers that say, "Not me. I'm not having anything to do with this stuff." But I agree with you. By and large, we gain their respect. We work with rapport. We don't want to intimidate anyone, but we help them see that the label narcissist, we're not going to throw that at you, but any label, diabetic, asthmatic, whatever the label is, it reflects a larger sphere of behaviors that are measure. I love your word, Jonathan. They're measurable. Come on, let's get beyond the label. The label, if someone has said you're narcissistic, what they meant was you know, you're controlling, you're intimidating, you're angry, you walk out of, you stonewall me, you anyway, any number of behaviors that we can identify, we can measure, we can name. And if the shoe fits, sir, ma'am, wear it. And then let's work at changing the behaviors. And that person who is saying you're a this, in time, they will stop saying you're a this because you're changing. So I think we all got to wrap our brains around that a label is a shorthand way of describing a larger, complex situation. And we need to talk about all of that complexity, all of those complexities. And then we can take the shame out of it all and say, let's just talk about stonewalling, okay? Let's talk about your simmering anger, okay? Let's talk about your intimidation. Let's talk about you interrupt anyway. All of those things, what they are, let's name them, measure them, and get on with getting healthier. And and I'll stop with this, Jonathan. The guys in my different advanced core and core strength, they like it. They like growing. It's growing is kind of fun. I don't know, fun is maybe an exaggeration, but there's something very rewarding about saying, yeah, I'm learning nonviolent communication. And I'm reading Dr. Rosenberg's book for the third time. And it's kind of cool. And this is a mountain I'm going to climb. And I'm kind of excited about it. Kind of. Rather play tennis and pickleball and so on. But anyway, it's kind of fun.
You talked a lot about clarity and having the ability to measure success with different measurements. If they are actively in a situation where they are still getting emotionally abused, part of that is creating a little bit of a haziness in their cognitive viewpoints on what's going on, the crazy making cycle. How does that affect the way you measure their success in working with you and how they respond to different things, to your treatment? What does that look like? Or does that affect your process at all?
I don't think about it as me measuring my client's success. I think the goal is, for me at least, is um, what has brought them here, how what's going on, what are they experiencing, and what do they need, and how would they measure success, or what would it look like or feel like to be in a space where it felt different or better, um, or or that change, whatever that change might be, however they would define it, however that would look or feel. So that's sort of where I like to start. And it is really interesting because I've worked with clients who are in psychologically abusive relationships in those marriages, who have decided to separate, who've decided to divorce. I've also worked with clients who have decided to remain married and to remain living at home with the person, and maybe at some point in the future they make a different decision. But I think by and large, a lot of what the goals are, or for them, how they want to feel, is more sure of themselves, more clear, more confident, that they have uh, more clearly defined boundaries. Those tend to be the goals, and not necessarily measuring it on what the status is or the state of their marriage or their residence or things of that nature. So I think for most of my clients, in fact, I would say by far the majority, they're talking more about how that feels and what those internal dynamics are, especially boundaries, but also a sense of self. That's generally speaking what the goals are.
I'm going to say it, I think what you just said a little differently, Jonathan. I agree with you. So, Katie, the abuse needs to stop. For sure, the abuse needs to stop. But now I want to put it in language that they might bring to our counseling session. So they might say to me, yeah, we just fight all the time. And then I look at that and go, what? Well, I wonder what's going on there. And there is a lot of hate. You used the word haze of confusion or hazy. So their connection is really troubled, really problematic. The opposite of confusion might be clarity. The opposite of a hazy fighting about everything would be, oh, we can talk about things effectively. We hold space. We hear each other. We value what each other has to say, and we influence each other. Everybody can sign up for that, whether it's the perpetrator or the victim. So if I can say to them, this couple, hey, I think I can help you two so that you really hold space, so that you hear each other, that you value each other's point of view. Would you like that? Whether you're the perpetrator or the victim, both say, yeah, I'll sign up for that. So I want to say to them, powering over each other or stonewalling, walking out of the room when your mate is talking, dismissing your mate, being sarcastic and rude. And come on, what I said to you, what I said a few minutes ago, bad behavior is bad behavior. Whether you are primarily the abusive partner or primarily the victim, bad behavior is bad behavior. So selling good behavior is not a hard sell. That I don't find it to be a hard sell at all. Everybody wants to sign up for that. And then, Jonathan, to your point, if we learn how to hold space, listen, validate, empathize, all those good words, then it creates connection. And everybody wants that. Everybody coming to the Marriage Recovery Center, they want that heartfelt connection where conflict diminishes, connection grows, and they feel better.
So I have a lot of phone calls calling in, and one of the big questions is what is your success rate? I'm concerned because I can't find a lot of positive feedback online. I only see the negatives. What is your success rate? So with the kind of talking about HIPAA regulations and whatnot, could you explain a little bit on what does that look like for us as for you gentlemen as clinicians, and the reasons why we don't solicit reviews online. Could you give a little insight on that?
Well, again, it's how do we define success? And we don't have any clear yardstick for defining success. What I tell anyone who wants to hear what I have to say about this is that the men in our treatment program that are there, that show up, that are growing, they are changing, they are becoming something better than what they showed up with 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half earlier. That in my book is successful. Is it enough for the victim of emotional abuse? We'll say it's a she. Is that enough for her to stay? She's got to decide that. That's her decision to make or to keep making, because she may say, I'm going to wait and see what he's doing after the dual core. And then she may say, I'm going to wait and see what he's doing after advanced core. And she may say, I'm going to wait and see what's happening after 6 months in core strength. And she may wait for a year and a half, two. And I get asked that question all the time. What, Dr. Hawkins, I mean, do you think we're making any progress? Well, I can tell you he's coming to advanced core. I can tell you that he's actively participating. I can tell you that he's taking more ownership. I can tell you that his thinking errors seem to be diminishing. I can tell you that he seems to be growing in emotional maturity. That's what I can tell you. And is that enough for you? That is your call to make. But I'm telling you, here's what I see, here's what I'm experiencing. This is how I can say we are being successful, and we are countering what a lot of public opinion says out there about they won't go to counseling. Oh, not true. They won't participate. Not true at all. They won't grow. Not true. Not my experience. Now, who are the men that won't come to our Jonathan's dual core, Jonathan and Jill's dual core? Of course, there are men out there that won't participate in core. They won't participate in advanced core. That's a different story. That's a different story. But the ones who do, by and large, are growing, they are changing, they're becoming something better than when they showed up.
I agree with all of what you said. I would also add, it would be very difficult for me to track progress or success, especially because I think a lot of times the clients I work with, whether they're individual or as a couple, this is part of their journey. Some like I said, sometimes people do some work at Marriage Recovery Center, and then I don't see them for a while, and then they show back up a year later, or 6 months later, and have new insight, new awareness, and a new dedication to the process, new commitment. It's it. I think part of recognizing the with personality disorders and with a lot of the relational disorders that we're talking about, these are developmental. And as Dr. Hawkins has said, this is not easy. It's not simple. There's no shortcuts. This is developmental. This requires a lot of ongoing, consistent work. And a lot of uncomfortable moments. If they're doing it right, they're going to be uncomfortable, and there's it's the commitment to that process sometimes waxes and wanes, and so that's I just have to trust. I have faith in each of my individual clients, in each one of those people, they do have the capacity to change, but they have to be invested in it. And I don't measure I don't give grades. I don't measure their success in any type of way. And I certainly don't measure it based off of the status of their relationship and whether or not they're separated or whether or not they're sleeping in the same bedroom or not. That's not how I personally measure success. And I think the clients who really engage in the process also are moving away from measuring success in that type of way.
We should add to this conversation that in our programs, we do invite her to give us feedback. We're not naive in this process, meaning we're just not naive. We don't think, hey, whatever he's telling us has got to be it. We ask for feedback. If you want to, I have the victims of abuse email me all the time and share other points of view. Hey, I want to let you know, Dr. Hawkins, that he took what you were talking about in advanced core and he used it against me. I want to know that. And then we use this feedback loop. I mean, we're not a pipeline. We don't say, hey, look, whatever you email me, we'll make sure. But we invite her participation. We invite her we get the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde syndrome. We get that these men have shadow sides, and those shadow sides may be running amok, and we want to know what's going on. So as best as we can, we are also inviting her to be part of that feedback loop so that we all together can say, are we making headway here or are we not? And if we're not, what are the behaviors? What's going on? And we utilize that in our treatment.
That's really good. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to this topic of success within our clients?
Just that it's really hard work. It's very rewarding work, but I want to reiterate again, no shortcuts, no simple answers, and we're going to make that clear at the front end. Everyone, if you want to do the hard work, Jonathan and Jill and Dr. Hudson and Dr. Hunt, all our entire team, we're here ready to roll up our sleeves to do the hard work, but there will be nothing easy about it, but it can be very, very rewarding.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your insights on what success looks like in the treatment of NPD and emotional abuse. To our listeners, we hope that this episode has provided you a deeper understanding of the work that we do here at the Marriage Recovery Center and the thoughtful approach that's taken towards each client's path to healing. If you found this discussion helpful, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe to Mad in Love for upcoming episodes. If you're interested in getting started with the Marriage Recovery Center, you could reach out to us by emailing frontdesk@marriagerecoverycenter.com. We're here to help. Until next time, take care.